The pro-Taliban organization 5 Pillars has recently put on a live stream hosted by their very own Roshan, who is famous for defending the radical protesters on BBC Newsnight. With him are his guests, among others, the very leaders of the radical protesters, Abdul Halim and Ithman Iqbal. After the entire world saw the radical protesters chanting "Infidel Shia, Infidel Shia," "Death to Yasser al-Habib," and hold up posters of known ISIS terrorists, 5 Pillars and the radical protesters attempt to cover their tracks by accusing the writer of the Lady of Heaven, Sheikh Yasser al-Habib, of the very same thing they were doing. Here's the footage they played during their live stream and have been trying to spread around social media.
Majority of the people probably know now, based on all the evidence that's been, it's in the public domain now. It's resurfaced just in the past few days, but it's been going on for years, where Yasser Khabis has also been seen in explicitly saying and calling towards violence against Muslims. He's also been shown to show him calling for Sunni mosques to be destroyed. I'm sure you've seen clips like that.
Yeah, can I actually just play out that clip and pause you there for a second, because we have that clip. Just give me 1 second.
الوهابي إن لم تقتله قتلك والوهابي يجب أن لا تضع قدماه النجسة أرض العراق الطاهرة. لا مكان له في العراق. أما المساجد التي يحكمها ما يسمى بهيئة علماء المسلمين، وهي هيئة علماء الكفر والفساد والمنافقين، فهذه المساجد يجب أن تهدم، ولا يجب أن يتم التراجع عن هذه المسألة. قوانين الله يجب أن تطبق بدون محاباة وبكل صراحة وبدون مراعاة.
How shameful. Sheikh al-Habib did not say Sunni, he said Wahhabi, clearly referring to violent, bloodthirsty terrorists. This video by Sheikh al-Habib was approximately back in 2006, when terrorists in Iraq bombed the holy Al-Askari shrine, a shrine I'm sure you radicals would love to see bombed to the ground. These terrorists were also killing many from the Iraqi population, and specifically targeting Shia Muslims. Do 5 Pillars and these radical protesters in the UK take issue with Sheikh al-Habib calling for people to fight back against these violent terrorists in Iraq, and to demolish their pretend mosques used to house weaponry to kill innocent civilians and used to indoctrinate the youth into becoming terrorists? I mean, they are voicing their opposition to fighting these terrorists after all. So perhaps they do take issue, and perhaps they support these bloodthirsty terrorists. You should know, this claim has been made against Sheikh al-Habib for a long while now by these radical types. They aren't bringing anything new to the table. Here's Sheikh al-Habib on the news back in 2008, clarifying this malicious attempt at cancel culture.
أنا لم أتحدث على الطائفة الأخرى في الكويت، لم أتحدث على المخالفين، بل بالعكس، وهذا أمر مع الأسف أنا يعني مظلوم فيه، حينما يقال عني مثلا أنني أمرت بأن تفجر مساجدهم.
هذا كان واحد من الأسئلة.
أختصر عليك
موجود بالفيديو.
موجود بالفيديو، ولكن
بالصوت.
أي موجود بالصوت والصورة،
موجود على اليوتيوب.
ولكن لما اقتطع ولما يعني أخذوها على طريقة ولا تقربوا الصلاة؟
ماذا تقصد إذا؟
من بعده ماذا ما هو موجود بعد هذا المقطع مباشرة، يعني بإمكانك أن ترجع إلى الموقع الرسمي موقع القطرة وتجد الفيديو كاملة، يعني الخطبة كاملة. أنا تحدثت وقلت بأنه المساجد التي تخزن فيها الأسلحة وتصبح تابعة لتنظيم القاعدة والوهابيين ومن أشبه، هذه المساجد تنسلخ عنها صفة المسجدية وتصبح بحكم مساجد الضرار. وحكم مساجد الضرار معروف شرعا ومثبت في القرآن الحكيم، وهو أنه يجب أن تهدم. وفي نفس الخطبة بعد هذا المقطع مباشرة قلت المساجد البكرية التي تكون بريئة لا تخزن فيها الأسلحة، لا تصبح معاقل لتدريب الإرهابيين وتفجير الأبرياء وقتلهم، هذه يجب أن تحفظ وتبقى على حالها. المشكلة عند الأطراف المناوئة لنا أنهم يأخذون شطرا من الآية ويتركون الآخر، فعمموا القضية وقالوا إني أمرت بأن يتم هدم وتفجير كل المساجد البكرية، وهذا أمر غير صحيح. كذلك الأمر بالنسبة إلى محاضراتنا في الكويت. أنا في محاضراتي في الكويت نصصت أنه رغم كل هذا، وهذا مثبت حتى في محاضر المحاكمات، يعني أنه رغم كل ما بينت شخصا غير شيعي بل حتى إن كان وهابيا كان مرميا جريحا في الشارع بسبب حادث سيارة، فإنه واجب عليك شرعا أن تأخذه إلى أقرب مشفى وتسهر على صحته وعلى شفائه. فإذا أنا أفرق بين الأمرين، أنا أدعو إلى السلم الأهلي، أنا أدعو إلى أن نتخالط، إلى أن نتعاون، إلى أن ننسجم اجتماعيا.
Notice how in the video they showed during the live stream, when Sheikh al-Habib said, "These mosques must be destroyed," obviously referring to the pretend mosques that house weaponry and radicalize the youth, this group, 5 Pillars and the Radical Protesters from the UK, added their own translation, adding the word Sunni in capitals before the word mosque. What a deception. Sheikh al-Habib did not say the word Sunni. He said Wahhabi. Wahhabi being a word that all Muslims from all sects use to refer to the radical terrorist groups like ISIS. Here's Sheikh al-Habib clarifying the matter in the same video they took their clip from.
مساجد الضرار يجب أن يفعل قانون مساجد الضرار الشرعي. المساجد التي تتجمع فيها وتخزن فيها الأسلحة والذخائر والمتفجرات، المساجد التي تكون منابرها منابر الدعوة للعنف والتحريض والإرهاب، عليكم السلام، هذه المساجد لا تعد مساجد، تعد معابد وثنية شيطانية إرهابية يجب هدمها. رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم هدم مسجد الضرار واعتبر حتى أحجاره نجسا. تنقل الروايات أنه حينما كان يضطر للمسير من المدينة إلى أحد لزيارة عمه حمزة عليه السلام كان يحاول أن يتحاشى الأحجار المهدمة من هذا المسجد الباقية الثلاث في الأرض، لأنها أحجار نجسة إلى هذه الدرجة، مع أن ذلك المسجد لم تخزن فيه أسلحة، لم تنطلق منه دعوات صريحة للإبادة الجماعية والطائفية والقتل والإرهاب والدموية والتكفير والتوحش، ومع ذلك أمر بهدمه. هذا قانون من الله عز وجل نزل في القرآن: والذين اتخذوا مسجدا ضرارا وكفرا وتفريقا بين المؤمنين. له باب في الشرع الإسلامي وفي الفقه الإسلامي ومجمع عليه حتى عند المذاهب الأخرى. المسجد الذي ينطبق عليه هذا العنوان يجب أن يهدم، يجب أن ينسف. لا كرامة لمساجد تكون بهذا الشكل. نعم، المساجد البريئة الطاهرة التي يمارسون فيها شعائرهم بكل حرية فنعم وأهلا وسهلا وبدون تحريض على الآخر. قلت المسيرات، المظاهرات، الشجب والاستنكار كله مطلوب شرعا جيد، لكنه أقل القليل، أقل ما يجب أن نفكر فيه. يجب أن نفكر فيما هو أعظم. يجب أن نرد الصاع صاعين، يجب أن نلقنهم درسا، يجب أن يروا ردة فعلنا تتجاوز حدود ما وقع حتى يرتدعوا. يجب أن نوصل إليهم رسالة شديدة اللهجة، وهذا يكون بالفعل لا بالقول. اترك الناس تتحمل مسؤوليتها. القاتل يجب أن يقتل، المحرض على القتل يجب أن يقتل، الوهابي إن لم تقتله قتلك، والوهابي يجب أن لا تطأ قدماه النجس أرض العراق الطاهرة، لا مكان له في العراق.
It's always an issue of taking things out of context with these radicals, isn't it? We have simply been calling for our right to express our religion freely, without violence, without threats of violence, and without attempts at revoking our right to freedom of speech. While we can clearly see their attempts to pit Muslims from different sects against each other, by their lie of how Sheikh al-Habib is supposedly calling for the demolition of Sunni mosques, as they put it, while in fact he was calling for the demolition of radicalization centers posing as mosques, centers responsible for radicalizing the youth. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if these radical protesters in the UK took issue with demolishing these breeding grounds of ISIS terrorists. Here's another video that 5 Pillars and these radical protesters have been spreading around online. They use this video to claim that Sheikh al-Habib has militias in Iraq that are, as they say, storming Sunni villages.
Here, in this video filmed in Iraq, a representative of Khuddam al-Mahdi is preaching sectarian hatred to rouse a Shia militia before they storm a Sunni village. This was filmed on Yasser al-Habib's FedEx TV.
هذول أتباع يزيد أتباع بن زياد وإحنا أتباع من؟ أتباع الحسين أتباع زينب صلوات الله عليه.
I really do pity these guys. The man you see in the video is Mahdi al-Wa'ili, a regular cleric in Iraq. And all that you see in the video was approved by the Iraqi government. And what you see in the video is merely a march to show opposition against ISIS. There was no plan to fight, nor did any fighting take place. And if fighting was to take place, it would have been against ISIS. No wonder you guys have an issue with the march. Notice how the radical commentator says they are arousing sectarian hatred, when Mahdi al-Wa'ili says they are the followers of Yazid. What on earth is he talking about? What sectarian hatred? This radical commentator is trying to paint a picture as if the Shia cleric is referring to some small local village of friendly Muslim farmers. It's very well known in Iraqi culture that they refer to these terrorist groups like ISIS as followers of Yazid. It's very common knowledge. And also, Yazid is a well-known historical bloodthirsty tyrant responsible for the murder of the Prophet's grandson, Imam al-Hussein, peace be upon him, at the Battle of Karbala. Are you a follower of Yazid? Goodness me. Can you believe what the narrator actually said in the video? They are arousing sectarian hatred. Man, you are clearly trying to pit Muslims from different sects against each other. That's clear as day.
This guy's a fugitive in Kuwait. And in Kuwait, he was known for inciting hatred. Then he moved and escaped, in fact, to Iran. Iran, predominantly Shia, clearly knew that this guy can cause this sectarian hatred amongst ourselves. Then he became an asylum seeker here in the UK. So the question is that how can you allow somebody with such a background to come into this country? It just feels like this person's been, unfortunately, he's been. It feels like he's allowed to do something like this. And if that was a Muslim, a Sunni Muslim, with according towards any violence like this, brother, how would you feel the authorities would have dealt with him?
It feels like they're just a bunch of spoiled brats, unable to get their way. He says, it feels like he's allowed to do something like this. Yes, he is allowed. This is something you seemingly cannot understand. Sheikh al-Habib was imprisoned for 10 years in Kuwait. For doing what exactly? For speaking openly about mainstream Shia beliefs. Nothing else. That was it. This is the problem with you guys. You say he was imprisoned in Kuwait and had to flee because he was supposedly inciting hatred. You've been calling him a hate preacher for the last 2 decades for the work he's been doing. And again now, you call him a hate preacher because of the Lady of Heaven. And when we look into your reasons for why you make these claims against Sheikh al-Habib in all these situations, we find it is all the same. It isn't because he calls for violence, because he's done no such thing. The world can see you for who you are. You demand for him to be silent about mainstream Shia beliefs that are held by hundreds of millions of Shia Muslims around the world. And if he isn't silent, you carry out a smear campaign and warn against sectarian violence, while this sectarian violence is carried out by you. How about you stop threatening violence and support the idea of different groups expressing their religious beliefs? That would be a good start, don't you think? These radicals in the UK must be stopped. They don't have anything to contribute to this discussion of freedom of speech because they don't believe in freedom of speech. They believe in the rest of us circumnavigating around their forehead, conforming to their conclusions on all things in life. And if you don't conform, they'll carry out a smear campaign against you, showing you that they're nothing but another tentacle of the octopus of cancel culture. The writer of the Lady of Heaven, Sheikh Yasir al-Habib, has never and will never call for violence, because that would go against everything he stands for, everything he fights for, and it would go against everything he's learnt from the Lady of Heaven, Lady Fatima, peace be upon her. So yes, we support everything Sheikh al-Habib has said in these videos that they've so malevolently twisted. And if they weren't so radical, they'd support him too, regardless of our theological differences. I'll leave you with this short message that Sheikh al-Habib has repeated over the years. Take a listen.
نحن من أحرص الناس على حقن الدماء ونحفظ دماء غيرنا، حتى غير الشيعة أكثر مما سواء بسواء كما نحفظ دماء الشيعة. ولذلك نقول هذه المقولة: من آذى بكريا فقد آذاني. لا نجيز لأحد أن يمس بكريا بسوء، فإنه يبقى لنا أخا في هذه الدنيا، ودمه محفوظ مصان، وعرضه كذلك، وماله كذلك. حكمه حكم المسلم.